So text number 10, mantra 9 of Ishopanishad. Anyad evahur vidyaya, anyad ahur avidyaya. Iti shushrumadhiranam ye na satad vichachakshirye. Anyad evahur vidyaya, anyad ahur avidyaya. Iti shushrumadhiranam ye na satad vichachakshirye. So, this verse, which explains the results of acquiring knowledge, that is culture of a knowledge and cultivation of a knowledge, and culture of a nescience, that is avidya. The wise have explained that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and that a different result is obtained from a culture of nescience. And in Prabhupada explains, in the purport, Prabhupada explains, as advised in chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, from text number 8 to 12, one should culture knowledge in following ways. One, one should become a perfect gentleman and learn to give proper respect to others. Second, one should not pose himself as a religionist simply for a name and fame. Third, one should not become a source of anxiety to others by the action of his body, by the thoughts of his mind, and by his words. Fourth, one should learn forbearance even in the face of provocation from others. Fifth, one should learn to avoid duplicity in his dealings with others. Sixth, one should search out a bona fide spiritual master who can lead him gradually to the stage of spiritual realization. And one must submit himself to such a spiritual master, render him service, and ask the relevant question. See, this is what is missing in today's education system, because there you can't ask questions. You have to just follow syllabus, imbibe that, and accept that as a knowledge. But real knowledge is that which comes from the bona fide spiritual master and which leads him to the gradual spiritual realization, where he can speak about his own realizations. And based on those realizations, he can ask questions. That's most important thing which is lacking in modern education. Seventh, in order to approach a platform of self-realization, must follow the regulative principles enjoined in the revealed scriptures. So that means not yatomat tatopat, or by own whims I can worship the Lord. No. If you really wanted to make a proper progress in your pursuit of self-realization, then you should follow the regulative principles enjoined in the Vedic text. Just don't create your own path for spiritual self-realization. Eighth, one must fix in the 10 tenets of the revealed scriptures. One should completely refrain from the practices which are detrimental to the interest of self-realization. And here we can see there are many people, pseudo-spiritualists, they proclaim, "Arey, khao piyo, kuch bhi karo. Bas ye mantra ka jaap kar ho jayega." You can eat anything, you can follow any schedule, and but still you will achieve progress. No, it never happens. If you really want to make progress in spiritual life, then yoga means the process which connects you to the Lord, and it has some do's and undo's that you need to follow. Then the next one should not accept more than he requires for maintenance of the body. Ati sarvatra varjayat. That's what Niti Shastra also said. If you accumulate more than the necessary, then your whole endeavor goes in protecting that. And you lose time, which is meant for making further progress. That's why it's very important. Then 11th, one should not falsely identify himself with the gross material body, nor should one consider those who are related to his body to be his own, which is very, very difficult. But unless and until you get rid of this Dehatma Buddhi, the bodily platform of a life, you can't make real progress in spiritual life. That's why Prabhupada says in the purport of 2.11 and 13 that the first step of self realization is to understand that I'm not this body and things related with my body are not mine. Who gets rid of me and my conception, he can make progress in spiritual life. 12th, one should always remember that as long as he has a material body, he must face the miseries of repeated birth, old age, disease, and death. There is no use in making plans to get rid of these miseries of the material body. The best course is to find out the means by which one may regain his spiritual identity. 13th, one should not attach to more than the necessities of life required for spiritual advancement. 14th, one should not be more attached to wife, children, and a home than a revealed scriptures ordain. That does not mean that you have to give up your responsibilities. Here it says that attachment, not the responsibility. Once you have taken the responsibility, you need to take care of that. One should not be happy or distressed or the desirables and undesirables, knowing that such feelings are just created by the mind. Shoka moha. These are the feelings that are there in our mind. Mind is the one which makes us feel this thing. One should become an unloyed devotee of the personality of a Godhead, Sri Krishna, and serve him with a rapt attention. 17. One should develop a liking for residence in secluded place with a calm and quiet atmosphere, favorable for spiritual culture. And one should avoid congested places where non-devotees congregate. 18. One should become a scientist or a philosopher and conduct research into spiritual knowledge, recognizing that spiritual knowledge is permanent, whereas material knowledge ends with the death of the body. These 18 items combine to form a gradual process by which real knowledge can be developed. Except for these, all other methods are considered to be in the category of nuisance. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, a great acharya, maintained that all forms of material bondage or material knowledge are merely external feature of the illusory energy, and that by culturing them, one becomes no better than an ass. Jada Vidya Jata Mayara Vaibhava Jivera Banaya Katha. The same principle is found here in Ishopanishada. By advancement of a material knowledge, modern man is simply being converted into an ass. Some materialistic politicians in spiritual guise decry the present system of civilization as satanic, but unfortunately, They do not care about the culture of real knowledge as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Thus, they cannot change the satanic situations. In the modern society, even a boy thinks himself self sufficient and pays no respect to elderly men due to the wrong type of education being imparted in our universities. Boys all over the world are giving their elders headaches. Thus, Sri Ishopanishad very strongly warns that the culture of nescience is different from that of knowledge. The universities are, so to speak, centers of a nescience only. Bapre. That's a great statement. The universities are, so to speak, centers of a nescience only. Consequently, scientists are busy discovering lethal weapons to wipe out the humanity. University students today are not given instruction in the regulative principles of a brahmacharya, celibate student life, nor do they have any faith in any spiritual injunctions. Religious principles are taught for the sake of name and fame only, and not for the sake of practical action. Thus, there is animosity not only in the social and political fields, but in the field of religion as well. Yeah. Nationalism has developed in different parts of the world due to the cultivation of nescience by the general people. No one considers that this tiny earth is just a lump of matter floating in an immeasurable space, along with many other lumps. In comparison to vastness of space, these material lumps are like dust particles in the air. Because God has kindly made these lumps of matter complete in themselves, they are perfectly equipped with all necessities for floating in a place. The divers of all spaceships may be very proud of their achievements, but they do not consider the supreme driver of this greater, more gigantic spaceship called planets. There are innumerable suns and innumerable planetary systems also. As infinitesimal parts and parcels of Supreme Lord, we small creatures are trying to dominate these unlimited planets. Thus, we take repeated birth and death and are generally frustrated by old age and disease. The span of human life is scheduled for about 100 years, although it is gradually decreasing to 20 or 30 years. Thanks to the culture of nescience, befooled men have created their own nations within this planet in order to grasp sense enjoyment more effectively for these few years. Such foolish people draw up various plans to render national demarcations perfectly, a task that is totally impossible. Yet, for this purpose, each and every nation has become a source of anxiety for others. More than the 50% of a nation's energy is devoted to defense measures and thus spoiled. No one cares for the cultivation of a real knowledge. Yet people are falsely proud of being advanced in both material and spiritual knowledge. See, even in 50 years back, Prabhupada has given all these things, which we can see in present day, how prominently they are visible. That's why the bona fide acharyas, they are called as a drashta, the one who can see the future of mankind. 50 years back, he has given these things, which is apt for present situation. Sri Ishopanishad warns us of this faulty type of education, and the Bhagavad Gita gives instruction as to the development of a real knowledge. This mantra states that the instructions of Vidya, that is knowledge, must be acquired from a dhira. A dhira is one who is not disturbed by the material illusions. No one can be undisturbed unless he is perfectly spiritually realized, at which time one neither hankers nor laments for anything. Adhira realizes that the material body and mind he has acquired by chance through material association are but foreign elements. Therefore, he simply makes the best use of that bargain. Adhira realizes that the material body and the mind he has acquired by chance through material association are but of foreign elements. Therefore, he simply makes the best use of bad bargain. The material body and mind are bad bargains of spiritual for the spiritual living entity. The living entity has actual function in the living spiritual world, but this material world is dead. As long as the living spiritual spark manipulate the dead lumps of matter, the dead world appears to be a living world. Actually, it is the living soul, the part and parcel of the supreme living being who moves the world. The Dhiras have come to know all these facts by hearing them from superior authorities and have realized this knowledge by following the regulative principles. To follow the regulative principle, one must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. The transcendental message and regulative principles come down from the spiritual master to the disciple. Such a knowledge does not come in the hazardous way of Nizant education. One can become Dhira only by submissively hearing from bona fide spiritual master. Arjun, for example, became a Dhira by submissively hearing from Lord Krishna, the personality of a Godhead himself. Thus, the perfect disciple must be like Arjuna, and the spiritual master must be as good as the Lord himself. This is the process of learning Vidya, knowledge, from the Dhira, the undisturbed. And Dhira, one who has not undergone the training of a Dhira, cannot be an instructive leader. Modern politicians who pose themselves as Adhiras are actually Adhiras, and one cannot expect perfect knowledge from them. They are simply busy seeing to their own remuneration in dollars and cents. How then can they lead the mass of people to the right path of self realization? Thus, one must hear submissively from a dhira in order to attain actual education. See how wonderful Prabhupada has explained about importance of a spiritual master, why one should accept him. Because there are some pseudo spiritual gurus, they say that, okay, you pay me this and I will give you some particular mantra and that will relieve you from this material bondage. That never works actually. When Prabhupada came here 50, 60 years back, there are many so-called Indian sadhus, they were there and they were propagating about the so-called Vedic knowledge, what they considered as a Vedic knowledge. And they were asking money for that. Like there was one person who was asking, okay, pay me $2,000 and I will give you liberation. So Prabhupada indirectly says that this kind of a spiritual master will not help you to have a real knowledge because he is depending upon others' dollars and cents rather than the above 18 principle of knowledge what Prabhupada has explained and what is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. If someone does not cultivate those 18 qualities or 18 aspects of knowledge, it becomes very difficult to acquire spiritual knowledge. And we can see whatever problems that Prabhupada has discussed with this modern education system, which forces people to create problems in the world. What he has stated in 50 years back, we are seeing them right now. So this is not happening only this time. It happened, it was like that, it is like that, and it will be like that unless and until we make center of our life as God consciousness. If we don't follow the principle of Ishavasya, then definitely we are not going to get any sort of a peace in this world. Then further again in the next mantra, 11, it says that avidyam cha yas tad vedo bhayam saha avidyayam mrityum tirtva vidyayam amritam ashnute. Only one can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. So, what will be the result of acquiring Vidya that has explained in this verse? Since the creation of the material world, everyone has been trying to attain a permanent life. But the laws of nature are so cruel that no one has been able to avoid the hand of death. No one wants to die, nor does anyone wants to become old or diseased. The law of nature, however, does not allow anyone immunity from old age, disease, or death. Nor has the advancement of material knowledge solved this problem. Material science can discover the nuclear bomb to accelerate the process of death, but it cannot discover anything that can protect man from cruel hands of old age, disease, and death. From the Puranas, we learn of the activities of Hiranyakashipu, a king who was very much advanced materially, wanting to conquer cruel death by his material acquisition and the strength of his nescience. He underwent a type of meditation so severe that the inhabitants of all the planetary system became disturbed by his mystic powers. He forced the creator of this universe, the demigod Brahma, to come down to him. He then asked Brahma for the benediction of becoming Amar, by which one does not die. Brahma said that he could not award the benediction because even he, the material creator who rules all planets, is not Amar, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text number 17. Brahma lives a long time, but that does not mean he is immortal. Hiranya means gold and Kashipu means soft bed. This cunning gentleman, Hiranyakashipu, was interested in these two things, money and women, and he wanted to enjoy them by becoming immortal. He asked from Brahma many benedictions in hopes of indirectly fulfilling his desire to become immortal. Since Brahma told him that he could not grant the gift of immortality, Hiranyakashipu requested that he not be killed by any man, animal, god, or any other living being within a 8.4 million species. He also asked that he not die on land, in the air, or water, or by any weapon. In this way, Hiranyakashipu foolishly thought these guarantees would save him from death. Ultimately, however, although Brahma granted him all this benediction, he was killed by the personality of a godhead in the form of Narasimha, the Lord's half lion, half man incarnation. And no weapon was used to kill him, for he was killed by the Lord's nails. Nor was he killed on the land, in the air, or in water, for he was killed on the lap of that wonderful living being, Narasimha, who was beyond his conception. The whole point here is that even Hiranyakashipu is the most powerful of a materialistic, could not become deathless by the various plans. What then can be accomplished by the tiny Hiranyakashipus of today, whose plans are thought from the moment to moment? So, this is what actually. Even the atheist, they claim that they don't believe, but they are the one who believe more in the God. You can see most of the dictators in this world, they try to control territories, they try to manure people in such a way that their goal can be attained. But what happened to them ultimately? All are dead. And Prabhupada says these are like a tiny Hiranyakashipus who are interested in just controlling money and women. And ultimately, their plans are totally destroyed. And that's why Sri Ishopanishada instructs us not to make one-sided attempts to win the struggle for existence. Everyone is struggling hard for existence, but the laws of material nature are so hard and fast that they do not allow anyone to surpass them. In order to attain permanent life, one must be prepared to go back to Godhead. The process by which one goes back to Godhead is a different branch of knowledge, and it has to be learned from revealed Vedic scriptures, such as the Upanishads, Vedanta Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. To become happy in this life and attain permanent blissful life after leaving this material body, one must study these sacred literatures and obtain transcendental knowledge. The conditioned living being has forgotten this eternal relationship with God and has mistakenly accepted the temporary place of his birth as all in all. The world has kindly delivered the above mentioned scriptures in India and other scriptures in other countries to remind the forgetful human being that his home is not here in this material world. The living being is a spiritual entity and he can be happy only by returning to the spiritual home. From this kingdom, the personality of a Godhead sends his bona fide servants to propagate his message by which one can return to Godhead. And sometimes the Lord comes himself to do this work. Since all living beings are his beloved sons, his parts and parcel, God is more sorry than we ourselves to see the suffering we are constantly undergoing in this material condition. The miseries of this material world serve to indirectly remind us of our incompatibility with dead matter. Intelligent living entities generally take note of these reminders and engage themselves in the culture of Vidya or a transcendental knowledge. Human life is the best opportunity for culture of spiritual knowledge. And a human being who does not take advantage of this opportunity is called Naradhama, the lowest of human beings. The path of avidya or advancement of a material knowledge for sense gratification is the path of repeated birth and death. As he exists spiritually, the living entity has a no birth or death. Birth and death apply to the outward covering of the spirit soul, the body. Death is compared to the taking off the birth, or taking off, and birth to the putting on of outward garments. Foolish human beings who are grossly absorbed in the culture of avidya, nescience, do not mind this cruel process. Enamored with the beauty of the illusory energy, they undergo the same miseries repeatedly and do not learn any lesson from the laws of nature. See, that's the pathetic condition, People, they really don't know where they can find the real happiness. See, even in modern civilization, we see that most of the people, they spend so much of time with the gadgets, where their mind is kept bombarding with the new ideas, which is created by and which is programmed by someone, and he lost his mind into that, and they go crazy. To bring them back to their normal condition, they need to have a human touch. Why human touch? Because the living subject means the presence of soul in the another body gives them their normal condition of a life. Then try to understand, we being a part and parcel of the supreme person who is full of bliss, we also want to have a place, but we try to find that place in matter rather than connecting ourselves with that source of happiness or reservoirs of pleasure. And that can happen only by cultivation of knowledge. So Prabhupada says here, therefore the culture of Vidya or the transcendental knowledge is essential for the human being. Sense enjoyment in the diseased material condition must be restricted as far as possible. Unrestricted sense enjoyment in this bodily condition is the path of ignorance and death. Sorry?
Sorry, Prabhuji, continue.
Okay. The living entities are not without spiritual senses. Every living being is his original. In his original spiritual form has all the senses which are now materially manifested, being covered by the material body. And mind, the activities of our material senses are perverted reflections of the activities of the original spiritual senses. In this disease condition, the spirit soul engages in the material activities under the material covering. Real sense enjoyment is possible only when the disease of materialism is removed. In our pure spiritual form, free from all material contamination, real enjoyment of the senses is possible. A patient must regain his health before he can truly enjoy sense pleasure again. Thus, the aim of human life should not be to enjoy perverted sense enjoyment, but to cure the material disease. Aggravation of the material disease is no sign of knowledge, but a sign of avidya, ignorance. For good health, a person should not increase his fever from 105 degrees to 107 degrees, but should reduce his temperature to the normal 98.6. That should be the aim of human life. The modern trend of material civilization is to increase the temperature of the feverish material condition, which has reached to the point of 107 degrees in the form of atomic energy. Meanwhile, the foolish politicians are crying that at any moment the world may go to hell. That is the result of the advancement of material knowledge and the neglect of the most important part of life, the culture of a spiritual knowledge. Sri Ishopanishada herein warns that we must not follow this dangerous path leading to death. On the contrary, we must develop the culture of spiritual knowledge so that we may become completely free from the cruel hands of death. This does not mean that all activities for the maintenance of the body should be stopped. There is no question of stopping activities, just as there is no question of wiping out one's temperature altogether when trying to recover from a disease. To make the best use of a bad bargain, this is the appropriate expression. The culture of a spiritual knowledge necessitates the help of the body and mind. Therefore, maintenance of the body and mind is required if we are to reach our goal. The normal temperature should be maintained at 98.6 degrees, and the great sages and saints of India have attempted to do this by a balanced program of a spiritual and material knowledge. They never allowed the misuse of a human intelligence for diseased sense gratification. Human activity is diseased by a tendency towards sense gratification have been regulated in the Vedas under the principle of salvation. This symptoms employs religion, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. But at the present moment, people have a no interest in religion and salvation. They have only one aim in life, sense gratification. And in order to achieve this, and they make plans for economic development. Misguided men think that religion should be maintained because it contributes to economic development, which is required for sense gratification. Thus, in order to guarantee further sense gratification after death, in heaven, there is some system of religious observance. But this is not the purpose of religion. The path of religion is actually meant for self realization. And economic development is required just to maintain the body in a sound, healthy condition. A man should lead a healthy life with sound mind just to realize Vidya, true knowledge, which is the aim of human life. This life is not meant for working like an ass or for culturing Avidya for sense gratification. The path of Vidya is most perfectly presented in Srimad Bhagavatam, which directs the human being to utilize his life to inquire into the absolute truth. The absolute truth is realized step by step as Brahman, Paramatma, and finally Bhagavan. The personality of a Godhead, the absolute truth, is realized by the broad minded man who has attained knowledge and detachment by following the 18 principles of Bhagavad Gita described in the purport of mantra 10. The central purpose of these 18 principles is attainment of men are encouraged to learn attainment of a transcendental devotional service to the personality of a Godhead. Therefore, all classes of men are encouraged to learn the art of devotional service to the Lord. The guaranteed path to the aim of Vidya is described by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which we have presented in English as a nectar of devotion. The culture of Vidya is summarized in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, text number 14, in the following verse. Tasmad ekena manasaha bhagavan satvatam patihi shrotavya kirtitaschaiva dheyash pujyascha nityada. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship personality of a Godhead, who is the protector of devotees. Unless religion, economic development, and sense gratification aim toward the attainment of a devotional service to the Lord, they are all simply different forms of designs, as Sri Ishopanishada indicates in the following mantras. So, any question, any comment about this particular verse? See, what we have learned in Bhagavad Gita, the same things we are finding in these mantras. And Prabhupada in the purport forcing us to read NOD, Nectar of Devotion. Okay, I have read Bhagavad Gita, now Ishopanishad. What is the next that I should read for making progress in spiritual life? So here, certainly Prabhupada is helping us out to invoke that interest in reading Nectar of Devotion. That's the art of teaching. Make sense? Rakesh bro, you are totally silent. Are you there?
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, I'm there. I'm listening, Prabhuji, hearing actually. But yeah, it's I need time to process it. I have to listen to this recording again and read it. it's taking time this time. I'm not able to grasp it right away.
Okay, no problem. Read it again. If you need my help, you can call me back. I'm there.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay?
Thank you. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
So we'll meet again tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Vancha kalpatarubhasya.
Vancha kalpatarushya kripa
Yes.
sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna.